In the second half of the 1950s, when the USSR was already recovering from the consequences of the war and the standard of living of the people began to gradually improve, the government decided to create the simplest and cheapest car for the working class, which each owner could service and repair independently. The Bureau of Light Vehicles of the Scientific Automotive Institute NAMI, led by Boris Fitterman, in cooperation with the department of the chief designer of the Moscow plant of small cars, began developing a prototype. Since the automobile industry in the Soviet Union was considered a lagging industry, almost all car models were copied from other countries and modified to meet the requirements of the local market and road conditions. Usually, the modifications were limited to making the model as cheap as possible. The future Zaporozhets was no exception. NAMI purchased and carefully studied the most popular European small cars. As a result, the prototype for the new Soviet car was the Italian Fiat 600. Many changes were made to its design and its own 27-horsepower engine was developed. The layout of the engine at the back was caused purely by economy. Thanks to this, the car was made shorter, lighter and cheaper, because it did not have a cardan shaft, and the gearbox was combined with the engine into one unit. It was decided to produce the car at the Kommunar plant in Zaporozhye, which is why it was called Zaporozhets. On November 22, 1960, the first Zaporozhets rolled off the assembly line. It was produced until 1994 in various modifications, ZAZ 965 and 965A. Better known as Hunchback, ZAZ 966 and 966B. Also known as Eared, copied from the German NSU Prinz, ZAZ 968, 968A and 968 meters. Also known as Soapbox, and they all had a rear engine layout with an air-cooled engine. The Hunchback Zaporozhets cost 1,800 rubles, or 20 average monthly salaries of that time. With the declared resource of the Melitopol engine at 50,000 kilometers, many copies drove more than 100,000 without repair, and engine repair was so simple that it could be done even in the field. Zaporozhets was also famous for its cross-country ability, for which it was loved by fishermen and hunters. Where the Volga, Zhiguli, Pobeda and Moskvich will sit, Zaporozhets will pass without any difficulty. Due to the lack of water cooling, the car was equipped with a gasoline autonomous heater for the engine and cabin, and with proper care for this unit in 20 degrees of frost, you could be in the cabin without a jacket. Due to the location of the engine at the rear, the load on the front wheels was significantly less and it was much easier to control the car because of course there was no power steering. Over the entire time, more than 3 million Zaporozhets were produced, and it really became a people's car, because there was simply no alternative to it. Subscribe to the channel. There will be much more interesting things ahead.